Okay, folks. So I need to do a little bit of a correction on myself because in the video I had done on the F-35B crashes, I had mentioned something about the Marines getting downsized and that it was from this Government Accountability Office assessment, their Weapons Systems Annual Assessment from June of 2022. But it was actually from the Force Design 2030. And in this file here, they just kind of break down some of this, and I had already done a four-part series on this, so I don't think I need to cover that. But I just want to correct myself on that, that the Marines getting downsized, that information wasn't from this file here necessarily. It was from this Force Design 2030 from March 2020. And I had done a two-part video reading this PDF file here. I'll go through a little bit more of it for this video here, and then I'll try to find the links for the two-part video that I had done reading through this, because it might actually be on the other channel on Earthbound Misfit, on Skynomaly's Earthbound Misfit. So anyway, I wanted to just kind of correct myself on it, and I want to scroll through and go down to the objective force to just to let you know what I was talking about. When I said that the Marines were downsizing, they were revamping redesigning the Marines, so to speak. And it says the outcome of the phase 1 and 2 effort was a redesigned objective force with the following characteristics. And it talks about reduction of approximately 12,000 Marines relative to the current total force by 2030, divestment of 3 active component law enforcement battalions. And then it talks about divestment of regimental headquarters, divestment of 3 battalions there. And then it talks about zero take companies, a divestment of entire capacity of 7 companies in pre-position capacity, 12 light armored reconnaissance companies, increase of 3 companies, so more recon, and 4 assault amphibian companies, divestment of 2 companies. And then it mentions the air combat element, 18 active component fighter attack squadrons with a reduction in the number of aircraft per squadron to 10. So that's 8 per squadron, right? 14 active component medium tilt rotor squadrons, recommended divestment of 3 squadrons. This one here is another heavy lift helicopter, recommended divestment of 3 squadrons. 5 active component light attack helicopters, divestment of 2 squadrons. The 4 active component aerial refueler transport squadrons, an increase of 1 squadron over current force. Okay. 6 active component unmanned aerial vehicle squadrons, an increase of 3 squadrons over current force. So they do mention the F-35 in this one here. I'll just read a little bit more into this video. Says the recommendations of the Phase 2 IPT result in a potential savings of $12 billion to be reallocated towards equipment modernization, training modernization, and force development priorities. However, I must emphasize that these initial results are just that. It remains for us to evaluate and refine during the upcoming Phase 3 effort. I have high confidence in several of the recommendations advanced by the Phase 2 IPTs. However, others require additional deliberate analysis during Phase 3, and it talks about additional observations. I am not convinced that we have a clear understanding yet of F-35 capacity requirements for the future force. As a result, the service will seek at least one external assessment of our aviation plan relative to NDS objectives and evolving naval and joint warfighting concepts. As described in congressional testimony, our continued pilot shortfalls are a factor. Zoom in just a little bit there. As described in congressional testimony, our continued pilot shortfalls are a factor we must consider and either scale programs of record accordingly or implement a sustainable, affordable solution. Other services face similar shortfalls. This issue as recruiting, training, and retention factors. Yeah, especially now, right? As well as fiscal and industrial based factors that we must consider in reconciling the growing disparity between numbers of platforms and numbers of aircrew. While the decrease in the number of infantry battalions is clearly articulated in the Phase 2 material, the absence of a major reduction in ground tactical combat vehicles is inconsistent with the systems oriented reduction discussed above. DCCD and I will need to assess existing ground tactical vehicle programs of record and recommend appropriate adjustments to approved acquisition objectives. So, the divestment of tanks. We have sufficient evidence to conclude that this capability, despite its long and honorable history in the wars of the past, is operationally unsuitable for our highest priority challenges in the future. Heavy ground armor capability will continue to be provided by the U.S. Army. Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that they mentioned something about the pilot shortfalls in the same context around the F-35 and its capacity and its requirements for the future force. I mean, maybe pilots don't want to have anything to do with the Marines F-35 because it has some issues with the injection issue. I don't know. I'll try to find a link to the Force Design 2030 two-parter series that I did, and put a link in the description for this correction video here. I just wanted to make sure that I corrected myself because I mentioned the Government Accountability Office Weapons System Annual Assessment, but it was actually Force Design 2030 that mentions the Marines downsizing. And I think that's curious that it seems to be these Marine F-35s that have an issue with this, with crashing.